Shanghai's lockdown has turned into a disaster for the 25 million residents in the city. Twitter CEO announced that Elon Musk turned off the board's offer. What could happen going forward? It seems all search engines are censoring. Is there any exception? What is the role of the technology in the public messaging? Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang. Well, Kathy will be joining us in the later part of the show. Okay, so first a little bit about the feature story. Search engine, everybody use it, but we all know that they are biased and they have their own agenda. And just recently, DuckDuckGo seems to start censoring. Is there still anything that we can trust and we can use every day? So Kathy will bring you the answer at the later part of the show. So stay tuned with us. So before we start, please remember to press like and subscription and the little bell. Make sure it is on. And all right, so we'll just get started. Okay, great to have to see you here. And in the beginning, I have to tell you what is happening in Shanghai. I don't think it's well imported or enough imported in English, but it's very, very significant. Okay, so basically, Chinese government locked down China's biggest city, Shanghai, since March 28th. So it has been almost like 15 years. I'm sorry, what did I say? 15 days. All right. So the lockdown, the purpose is to carry out the CCP's zero COVID policy, all right? Because they tried that 2 years ago in Wuhan. They pretty much just locked down everything. Nobody moved so that they can starve to death the virus. It seems to have worked 2 years ago. Altogether, they claim they only lost 3,000 lives, and which actually Kathy and I reported to you that couldn't be true. But anyway, this still subdued the virus and was seems to be able to wade through the mess 2 years ago. So Chinese Communist Party or this supreme leader Xi Jinping came to adopt that. That's their strength. That's the unique measure of locking down, mercilessly. Is the most effective way to deal with any virus. So what happened is in the late March, the Omicron variant hit Shanghai. And then Xi Jinping believed that his approach that he learned 2 years ago is a must-win approach this time. So he ordered a whole city lockdown. Okay, their plan is to lock down half of the Shanghai for 5 days, another half for the other 5 days, and then give it a few days on today, April 11th. They shall be able to reach the zero COVID scenario. Okay, and so what happened? Today, over 25,000 people are tested positive for the virus, and altogether 180,000 people tested positive. However, as of now, zero person died. Nobody died. Okay, so we share with you our interview with Dr. Malone, right? And you know that Omicron, although it's very, very contagious, its harm is just like a flu, all right? However, CCP is still determined to eradicate it as it did 2 years ago. To them, that would be a political position, and winning the battle against Omicron would be a political success. Okay, so what they did is that they locked down the entire city. And although there's zero people who die from the virus, there's an unidentified number of people die of other things, acute diseases, because including starvation. All right. So because the party's overriding priority is saying that if you don't get nuclear acid tested, if you are not tested, you cannot do anything. You cannot go anywhere. You cannot even enter the hospital. Okay, that's the overriding order. So many people, when they have their sickness or acute disease, they cannot hold. And so people die at the door of the hospital. There's many, many cases of reporting by the common people, never by the media of the Chinese government. Well, I just want to remind you that every media belongs to the Chinese government. There's no single independent media in China. All right, but what I want to stress to you and call your attention is the hunger that is happening to virtually every person in Shanghai, 25 million people. Because how do they get food? They cannot go out. They cannot, it's not like they cannot go out of the building. They cannot go out of their door. So somebody has to deliver the food to them. And the delivery person needs to get food from somewhere, and that somewhere needs to take order from the people who are locked down. So I report to you this, there's an American attorney in Shanghai, and his name is Jared, and then he would just tweet every single day since March 8th. So basically, starting 12 days ago, he started tweeting that he has difficulty finding food. He has no storage, and do not have any preparation for that. So every morning, he just opened the app and try to order some food, vegetable or meat. And he has to use 10 apps and check every app every 10 minutes in order to grab the limited inventory there at some online shop. Even so, still on some day, he could not find food. He has 2 children and his wife. They have to conserve, they have to eat very little so that they can make sure that they still have something to eat the next day. And this is an American attorney and living at a upper class type of residential district. But for the many other people, including the low-income people, including the old people who don't know how to use apps, what do they do? We don't know, but we heard report through people sharing online that people just died of starvation. Okay, this is really a very big slap on the face of the CCP, because Shanghai is the proudest city in China, and now is meeting its most miserable experience. And besides, there are 400,000 foreigners in Shanghai who just live and work there, who most of them don't know how to write or read Chinese. And how do they find food or order food through those Chinese language apps? We don't know. So as an end result, the U.S. Embassy issued an order that the U.S. Foreign mission there can voluntarily come back and without staying there. And so the embassy issued an order, and which angered the CCP's foreign minister. And then his spokesperson just harshly criticized American government for doing such evacuation, and saying that that's an attack to the China's COVID policy. Just you can think about how ridiculous that is. Okay, the U.S. foreign mission, and including the Marines at the U.S. embassies, they faced hunger. They cannot find food because they did not prepare any. Now they have to leave, and then that was regarded as a shame that's imposed upon China, so-called, by the speaker of the Chinese Foreign Ministry. So that's how ridiculous things has become. So just remember, okay, just try, as we all know, if you try not eating for one day, think about what's the feeling there. It's terrible. I tried that. And then now virtually 25 million Chinese people in Shanghai, they are not sure that whether they can find food tomorrow. And on some day, they just starve. And they don't know how long this will last. And the government, for some reason, cannot resolve this. Okay, the food all the supply chain just got cut off because people cannot move. So food cannot move into Shanghai, and delivery people cannot deliver them, and even at the door, they have difficulty coming down to pick up the food, and everything connected together. And then we are facing the most modern city, most advanced, so-called advanced city of China is starving at this time. So yeah, I'll keep reporting to you this every 2 days. I'll just update you guys because that's the pace of our show. But yeah, it's just something that's really worth noting, and this could become, in my own opinion, become a chance for the regime to break. It is as severe as that, and yeah, we'll see how things go. Okay, and then what do you think? You can just type up your comment there, or what else do you want to know? If I know, I'll try to answer. But I've been watching and observing this development over there of the situation in Shanghai literally every hour. Okay, so that's what is happening. So basically, just to deal with a flu-like type of thing. Or even just to say, simplify that, to deal with flu, they locked down 25 million people. And they lost, they lost about $55 billion, $5 billion every single day for that locking down, $5 billion US every single day. And then also at the cost of an unidentified number of people dying of acute disease and just starvation, only for the purpose of making sure the number of people who caught flu goes to zero. This is how ridiculous a communist, nation could become, and it's actually quite typical if you look at the last 7 decades in China. All right, so leave your comment. What do you think? What do you think? Okay, I really want to know how you think about that. Okay, as we go on, then the next one has to do with the Twitter, okay? And the Twitter CEO, Parag Agrawal, wrote an open letter, actually, last night. It's quite a breaking news. I was driving from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and I caught the news, and the Wall Street Journal also reported only like 4 lines, because they don't know what happened, but they have to report it. So basically, it's a tweet, okay? It's a letter addressed to the CEO's team, but he actually tweeted to the public. So that's why I call it the open letter. Okay, it's basically said the board of the Twitter and offer a seat to Elon Musk, a seat of the director to Elon Musk, but Elon Musk turned it down. Okay, and it said, so what's the offer? Okay, in the offer, the Twitter CEO said, or the Twitter's board said, quote unquote, okay, quote, we also believe that having Elon as a fiduciary of the company where he, like all board members, has to act in the best interest of the company and all our shareholders was the best path forward. All right, okay. It is said that it is this condition, okay, that turned Elon Musk off, and he decided saying, no, thank you. I'm not joining the board. And that's quite shocking to all the people, including all the people who bought the stock, just on the day that Elon Musk announced that he has bought, 74 million Twitter shares at a cost of $2.6 billion in a matter of a few weeks, okay? And taking 9.2% of the Twitter and making him the biggest shareholder of the Twitter. Okay, and then at the end of the letter, the Mr. Parag Agrawal wrote this: there will be distractions ahead, but our goals and the priorities remain unchanged. Well, that's an interesting sentence there, right? There will be distraction ahead. What does that mean? He's no longer your board member, and you still have your board. Business carry on as usual. Why there's a distraction? You're just afraid of his tweet. Actually, it turned out not to so simple, all right? By turning down this offer of the board, Elon Musk don't go to the board, then he free himself from this requirement of not owning more than 14.9% as any board member. No board member on the board of the Twitter can own more than 14.9%, 15%, okay, anyway, 15%, make it simple, all right? But without sitting on the board, Elon Musk could buy all the other shares of Twitter from the market, making him absolutely the controller, controlling shareholder of the Twitter. So this is what could happen down the road. This is what actually deep worried the CEO, and then this is probably the reason why he wrote that there will be distraction ahead, but our goals and the priorities remain unchanged. Okay, and as you know that how much is the Twitter worth? Altogether, it's just a little more than $30 billion. How much net worth does Elon Musk have? 74. So by taking just 1/10 of his wealth, he can buy up the Twitter entirely, and then maybe after that action, well, the stock price will raise. He will just make money just right at the moment that he announced that he buys more. But as a matter of fact, he doesn't have to buy 100%, right? He can buy 51%, and he can have complete control of that company. So what do you think? Do you think he's not joining the board is a good thing or a bad thing, and why? I want you to type up there so that I get your opinion. All right. So it's this is quite a news, and many of us are using Twitter. I know that many of us don't use Twitter. Okay, we use other things, but still, this is quite a matter out there, and in the public square. Anyway, so talking about the technology, all right. So Kathy is not with me today, but she did 2 interviews a couple of hours earlier, and then we'll have her, present those interviews to you. It has to do with technology. So what it's about? Take a look.
For people who feel they are being censored or those who are tired of being tracked when using internet, a pretty popular alternative of web search tool is called DuckDuckGo. But it changed for many of them about a month ago after the company said Russian disinformation would be minimized on its site. DuckDuckGo's chief executive, Gabriel Weinberg, tweeted on March 9th that the search engine would rank website, quote, associated with disinformation, unquote, lower in its search results. People are concerned this could be a sign of DuckDuckGo is picking up the censorship policy like other big tech companies. Naturally, people are also wondering if there are any other alternatives to the popular search engine tools. What's the solution to the search engine censorship? And the bigger question, what is the role of technology in messaging? So in this episode, I talked to 2 experts about these questions. One is Steve Marshall, a search engine veteran who left Silicon Valley and founded Jibiru, a private, uncensored search engine. And the other guest is Rich Laputra, expert in digital marketing since 1985, and he's the president of Free America Alliance. So first of all, I asked Steve, how does he view the change of stance by DuckDuckGo?
My hat's off, honestly, to Gabriel Weinberg and, what he wanted to promote with DuckDuckGo. It's been a great marketing exercise. Unfortunately, they're using Bing as the search index for all their data. And it's, when you're you're forced into some sort of system like that, you're beholden to their rules. We actually looked at that with Jibiru a couple years back, and Bing was very forceful in terms of how we would actually.
So you think their censoring relates to the system they use, which is Bing?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Gabriel has a lot of choice. I mean, based on the agreements that one would sign being a Bing partner, which has. So you're already limiting information, and then, they're very strict in terms of their rules of how they allow people to change the results as they come back from that feed. So it's very difficult to compete in the search engine space. It's very expensive to run the servers to hold all this data. So it's no surprise, and I'm quite saddened by this actually that they raised $112 million to promote privacy and frankly trying to uncensor things. I think Jibiru has been doing this for the same amount of time, 15 years now. That it's saddening. I honestly, it hurts my heart to see this, and I'd love to see DuckDuckGo be successful, but frankly, the technology just and the big search engine systems, the Silicon Valley just doesn't want this to happen. It's difficult.
Then how does Jibiru does the search engine different from DuckDuckGo?
Well, again, so DuckDuckGo, you have DuckDuckGo Ecosia. There's these things that Bing has basically they've allowed this system of their index to be prolificated to people to create their own search engines, but it's all built on this 10% of basically what Google even has. So what we've been doing on the Jabiru side, we've been building our own index for the last 15 years. We've got almost 2 billion URLs that exist within Google and within Bing and other places, and that have been removed. It's kind of difficult to explain all of that, but we have our own index, and then we backfill with Google and Bing and other things. So it's sort of a meta search. But we're putting this stuff now on the blockchain, which basically is truth. And that's, I think that's what's going to be disruptive to this whole space. Basically, the truth is going to come out, and everybody's talking about Web3. There's the metaverse. There's things that I think are being misled in terms of what Web3 actually is. But for us, Web3 is actually a technology, a new foundation of the internet that enables us to take content and store it immutably for record's sake, right? So let's say we end up in this, God forbid, a terrible World War III situation, and the future archaeologists have to go back and reconstruct what caused all of this. And I mean, the winners of war write history. And to me, I don't think we should be talking about should we censor things or not. Let the information be out there, and the blockchain is the technology that allows us to do that, right? I mean, Kathy, you guys came from China, a very censored country, and I don't want to say where we're maybe headed here in the current state of things, but to actually be able to back information up in the blockchain is possibly the one source of truth that could be the Library of Alexandria of the future. And so essentially we're building the search engine that can attack and understand that information and serve it back up to people as we need it.
Because I'm, really not a tech person, and a lot of our audience probably are not. So what would be the essential difference when you use the blockchain technology to do the search engine versus what Google or DuckDuckGo and other search engines doing right now?
Well, essentially, it's the factor of being decentralized, right? So right now we're dealing with centralized systems, whether it be Google Cloud, the Amazon Cloud, AWS, a number of other systems that basically control the flow of information. So the idea of decentralizing the flow of information, it's the only way we can actually have a true backup of information, is doing it distributedly.
Yeah, so when people use, for example, Google to search or DuckDuckGo to search information on the Russia-Ukraine war right now, how would be the search results different than if they use the Jibiru to search?
Yeah, so it's not just Jibiru to search, but it's this whole ecosystem of our own index, right? Where Google, Bing can decide what things should rank, should not rank, and it's been called, shadow banning. There's all sorts of terminology around different ranking algorithmic pieces. But in the short, I've been doing search engine optimization for over 15 years now, and that's why Jibiru came to exist. A group of people realize shadow banned or depressed and lift that stuff back up, because people should be able to see that. The algorithms do one piece of suppressing information. What we've done is we've kind of reversed that. So if things get intentionally suppressed or depressed, we try to raise that back up. Again, we believe information should be accessible to people, and let the people decide what reality is. So one of the other things we're doing is backing up videos that have been deleted or removed from YouTube, and we'll actually add that as a filter in the video results shortly. That we're working with PDVid, some great folks that have been doing other web archive experiments. So we're hopeful to actually have that coming online in the next couple of weeks. So things that have actually been taken down from YouTube be resurfaced and filtered upon.
So you could just revive those deleted videos from YouTube by YouTube.
That's right. We've been indexing all of this information. We've been storing it. So yes, as things have been taken down, it's fair that it should be revivable, in our opinion. So let people decide, what was there, and if it's propaganda or not. Let that be open to Discord. So.
That's really sounds amazing. But then, since it's deleted from the YouTube, when you revive it, where those video will show?
Yeah, it's being backed up. I don't want to disclose the sources where that is because those could be vectors of attack, of course. But point is, we want to save the information. It's the world's information. It's kind of the Library of Alexandria. And again, the victors write history, right? So we just think it's important to back up all information as it's delivered and allow people access to that. And that's all we're trying to do is allow the access to find where that information is. So.
Steve, you came from Silicon Valley, so this question is not really related to technology, but see if you have any input on that. Why do you think, the high tech, especially the Silicon Valley, initially, for example, Google said they will do no evil, but come to today, a lot of people won't really agree with that. What's the reason they become that?
Yeah, it's tough, Kathy. It's myself in Silicon Valley for some of the biggest tech firms in marketing. This is why I built Jabiru. I knew that organically I'd been invited to the Google campus a number of times, and great parties. It's a good story. It's about money. Ultimately, it's about advertising. It's dollars. But there's a new economy out there. I mean, the decentralized web, honestly, is the way of the future. And I think everybody's going to play catch up with this. Google's going to have a tough time. We have, third-party cookies are going away. The way web tracking is working with all the European compliance, thankfully, has kind of led the charge on this in terms of privacy and tracking what we can do. And the current models aren't sustainable. Similar to currency. That's why crypto is one side of this whole thing. But utilizing the blockchain technology that basically funds and provides the privacy and the anonymity in the crypto world, to me, information is more valuable than money at this point, right? Especially if we're going into times of war. If we can't preserve the information and truth, right? If we think about like security by design, blockchain effectively, there's a ledger of everything happening, every change, every record. So it's the future of information is my belief. There's going to be a shift, I think, of the internet. Blockchain's not going to change everything, but hopefully we can save information in places that, God forbid, we destroy ourselves in some sort of war. That future archaeologists will be able to unravel what we've done and find some truth in everything.
For our audience who are interested in check out Jabiru, what do they do?
Well, Jabiru is just the index essentially. So it's gibiru.com means nothing, but there's a number of other sites out there. Search Rocket, search rockit.com. Free search is coming on board. There's just a number of sites that are all using this sort of open source index that we're creating to uncensor and privatize the web. Plum.one, plumb.one is another example. So we're just distributing this information out there. It's we're sharing the index with everybody. That's when you realize that we've all been locked into watching Google for so long. It's like watching MSNBC or CNN or Fox, or it doesn't matter the brand you put behind it. There's a lot of other information out there, and we're trying to surface that. So.
Okay, so you actually your sharing the technology with others so that the other search engines can use your technology for people.
That's it. I'm just a spokesperson for the cohort that's essentially trying to decentralize information.
So, what is the role of technology in messaging? How can technology better serve messaging? Rich Laputra got involved in digital marketing even pre-web since 1985 when the microcomputer came out. He personally experienced how messaging delivery has evolved with the development of technology. Rich is very passionate about various human rights issues, including sex trafficking and veterans. He founded a nonprofit called Cause Action Inc. He's also the president of Free America Alliance, trying to address the challenge of the role of technology in messaging.
There is a cohort, there is a growing group of people, and some of them are very technical and some of them are much less so, but we all have a love and a passion for preserving what we believe can be better and closer truth. Truth is rarely, and you'll forgive me, but truth is rarely absolute. So we count on good faith and technology to help us bring us closer to making better decisions. And there are people who will manipulate that. And we don't want to be, we reject that. We don't think it's a prudent way for people to continue to deal with what we're dealing with now and what you dealt with in your background when you left China, as I understand it. Mm-hmm. We are of the persuasion that, this is about technology serving a kind of philosophy, if you will, or a point of view that says we ought to be able to consider information from multiple sources, perhaps by so doing reduce some of the rather insane, if I may use that word, divisions that now lie between people that I think have been engendered or fostered by how information is either delivered or kept from, and that's the point that Steve was pointing out is very important. You know, you look at censorship of any kind, or any kind of a voice that claims to be the one and only voice. I am not a cynic, but I am naturally a bit skeptical of sources, and there's nothing wrong with that. We ought to be able to look at sources and points of view and stories, and so it's a great moment. Actually, I'm not a technologist, technically speaking. I'm not Steve has lived in a world and worked in a world that is arguably much deeper into this. He's been doing this for a long time. I'm more on the consumer side, and to the extent that I'm developing a platform with Steve for this kind of access, I think it's a good thing. And the technology ought to serve people and their best interests, and I do believe that this is in their best interest. It's important that people look at things from multiple perspectives, even if they're by some people view them as being extreme, or they assign whatever adverb or adjectives they need to assign. Very often, they're no more right or wrong. It's just a question of, again, having access to that information. That's why what the blockchain is about, and the fact that Steve pioneered in this space and took this initiative years ago, that's why we're working together to advance again a more open, an open web, and the means to access that open web. And so thank you for the opportunity to backstop a little bit here, but I do think it comes down to that. Now there's an opportunity for technology to serve people and their decisions, and that includes their political decisions, their personal decisions, to better inform them. It's based on the premise that we can think things through on our own and independently without having to be beholden to any one source.
Yeah, so Richard, I think you really hit a point or question. I think people, it's debatable, like whether the technology companies should they be deciding like what's the best good information for people to see.
Yeah, that's a very fair question. On the one hand, the answer, I'm of two minds at times on this question. It is, private entities and private companies, our system of free enterprise, and I prefer to refer to it as free enterprise as opposed to just simply capitalism. It's both. But our system is built on my prerogative to create a business and to choose how it is that I will run and manage that business. And that is pretty fundamental, actually. And so in one sense, we don't have the prerogative of telling a private enterprise, as big as Google is or anybody else, how and what they should or shouldn't do in terms of how they handle and choose to handle information, any more than we would insist that a restaurateur serve a particular kind of food or cook it a particular way. On the other hand, they have very much become part of the fabric of governance, and they've become part of the overall American fabric. I mean, they did sort of whip open a big old candy store, and everybody went in for the candy, and they understood that. I have, some years in this, back to when Google wasn't even called Google. So they built their business, and it's not to isolate Google alone, because we can all see what has happened elsewhere, Facebook, and for that matter, other social media networks and search engines. They, on the one hand, have the prerogative to run the business the way they choose to run it. On the other hand, we get into the matter of corporate responsibility and certain accountability now that I think is a fair question to ask. We ought to at least be able to ask the question, and to be shut down, to be told that we're to be quiet and sit down because we're asking the questions is not a good choice. And as Steve pointed out, this is very much an issue in Europe, more so sooner in a sense than it was here, mostly around privacy, but again.
Yeah, and Kathy, you guys dealt with being in the YouTube penalty box for a week with the People's Convoy, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, censorship is real in America. It's happening. I've been monitoring search rankings for the last 15 years, and that's, again, why Jubiru came to be what it is, where I decided we should just start re-ranking things that are being suppressed. And so it's unfortunate that, it's come this far. But again, my belief is that we should preserve all the information in some sort of web archive, which is luckily blockchain allows that. And now with the new video stuff, that we are backing up everything deleted from YouTube or removed from YouTube to at least be available for people in the future to look back and make the right decisions of what might have really happened given the situations that we're in.
I'll add a quick note, if I may, on the matter of censorship. And Kathy, I was not aware until recently how you were off YouTube for a week. I'm aware of private individuals, somebody at a private level who was essentially, this has happened to them multiple times, and again, only for passing on information on, and nothing extreme, weird, or violent, or insane, nothing like that. Just simply the same kind of thing that you covered with the truckers, put this private individual in that same penalty box, and that just begs an even bigger question, in a sense, that if it's at the individual level, yikes, that is of great concern. Now, again, it's their prerogative to do it, and I think what Steve and I and others, many others, are saying, we ought to have other alternatives and other ways in which these things can be. And we certainly don't subscribe to or endorse or want to see any on either side. We ought not to be engaging in anything that is abusive, that is encourages violence or such, but we ought to be able to have a fair and reasonable access and conversation respectfully without being put in the penalty box as you were, simply reporting. And you have a perspective.
Having your bank account shut down, which is the future of this, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you have a very, very special perspective. I don't know you that well, Kathy, but I know a bit about, your story, only at a distance. But you understand it better than most people would because you've lived it.
Yes.
Steve is grown up in much more technical, space than I have, even arguably. But the unifying factor, the common denominator, and I believe it's, of course, it's the same with you. The common denominator and the unifying thing here is the passion for better culture, better community, better decisions, better governance, all of it. And we're dependent on this fantastic, big thing called the internet and the web. And it is our individual and collective responsibility to manage it as well as possible. Mm-hmm. And that's what Steve started doing. And we found each other on the road to figuring this out. I'm very happy for that.
Thank you, Richard, for sharing with us where you come from. And so I think indeed a lot of people would have the same sentiment, the truth is the truth, but it's for people to get the information so that they can make their own judgments.
Indeed.
Thank you, Steve, for giving us your insights.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right. So what do you think? And so we met. Yeah, I met Mike Steve a few months ago, and so basically those are the individuals. Okay, American citizen who just take things into their own hand and see what they can do. And be it SafeChat or Gibaru or other tools. Okay, who are still they just exist because of the founders. Okay. Persisting there. And just like this show. All right. So we'll keep finding them. We'll keep presenting their story to you so that they can also try their product, Gibaru, I think, gibiru.com. And I have a lot of admiration for those determined citizens who do their best job for the freedom that they believe in. All right. So that's all before tonight. And thank you for being with us, really. And so I will see you the day after. Have a good night, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.